example, in the year 2000 until 2015, there were different inflation rates over time. So yung 1,000 mo at nung before year 2000, how much na siya by 2015 because of inflation, 490 na lang yung halaga niya. So, bakit ganon? Dahil yun nga, may general increase in prices. Tapos, so it's like silent thief dun sa pera. So, you see there is a problem in there. So, how do you protect your money from inflation? So, you need to find an investment vehicle that can possibly give you higher returns than inflation rate para hindi na ubos yung value niya. So, do you think your bank deposits, yung return rate nun can beat inflation? So, if you think investing is a risk, not making a decision is also a risk pag iniwan mo lang yung pera mo sa bangko dahil hindi niya kaya mag-beat yung inflation. So here, I present to you some samples of different financial goals. So, mga usual na pinagagastusan natin are our expenses, emergency fund, education needs for kids or for yourself. Syempre, we also allot for our hobbies or travel, for our retirement, and siguro, for example, if you're saving up for capital ng business or pang bili ng real estate, so, di ba, may iba't iba tayong pinag-iipunan, kumbaga. So, di ba, I usually meet my clients and what I have observed with most of them, lahat ng pera nila nakalagay lang sa bangko. So, yung kahit magkakaiba yung goals, lahat nakalagay sa iisang account. So, do you think, is it right to lump together all goals in one basket? For me, nare-recommend ko sa kanila na hiwa-hiwalay nila ng product and assess which product yung would fit that certain objective and timeline. Bakit? So, sa tingin mo ba same yung time frame ng expenses mo and retirement? So, kung magkaiba yung destination mo, I think it's more appropriate to have different vehicles to get there. So, kunwari ang destination mo ay, kunwari galing lang ako Las Piñas, pupunta akong Alabang, kaya ko siyang e-bike. Pero for example, pupunta ako ng Baguio, kaya naman siyang gawing e-bike, pero it would be more easy if I just use a car, di ba? So that's why for different goals, we assess which investment vehicle would be appropriate for that destination. Also, another thing, that's why it would be better na hindi ipagsama-sama yung funds mo in one deposit account. Because, for example, what if nagkaroon ka ng emergency? So, di ba, nagamit yung pera mo for emergency. How would you know if you still have enough money for tuition ng anak mo, for your expenses, for your retirement? So it's difficult to monitor kung manare-reach mo pa ba yung ibang goals kung naubos mo siya for one goal, if they're all lumped together in one. So that's why I usually recommend to compartmentalize the goals and the product kung saan mo siya itatago. So here, I'll show you the definition of mutual funds. So what are mutual funds? So very foreign ba sa inyo yung concept ng mutual funds? So it is, what is a mutual fund? A mutual fund is where money from different shareholders are pooled and invested by an investment company into a diversified portfolio of securities. Now, where is the money invested? Mutual fund companies specify the investment objectives and philosophies that will govern the investment of fund it manages. So to give you an illustration of that, so for example, yung mga tao, yan tayo yung mga investors. So we put our investments in different types of funds. So to classify them, merong conservative funds, there are aggressive funds, and then there are balanced funds. So those funds naman, with their pooled money from us, they invest it in different types of securities, depende kung anong klaseng funds sila. So for example, for the conservative fund, mandated siya to invest in short-term securities and bonds. For the balanced funds, it can invest in stocks, bonds, and short-term securities. And then for the aggressive funds, it usually has a big percentage invested in stocks. So what happens naman when they invest in these different securities? So yun, it's invested in anticipation na it will earn. So when these securities tumataas yung value nila, tumataas yung net asset value of the funds. And then, if tayo naman, nag-redeem na tayo, so kung gusto na natin ma-encash yung investment natin, so kung tumaas yung securities, tumaas yung value ng fund, edi tumaas din yung amount na in-invest natin. So basically, that's how mutual fund investing works. So to give you an example naman ng may computation siya. So the earnings are computed based on the net asset value per share on the date of the investment versus on the date ng current when you redeemed it. So ano ba yung net asset value per share? So siya yung halaga nung fund divided by the outstanding number of shares. So kunwari, nag-invest ako ng 1 million, tapos ang net asset value per share niya nung time na nag-invest ako ay 2 pesos per share. So that means I was able to buy 500,000 shares. And then over time, what if nag-increase yung net asset value per share ng by 0.50? So it means kumita ako ng 0.50 pesos per share. If you multiply that by the number of shares that I own, which is 500,000, edi ang magiging current value na investment ko ay 1.25 million versus yung initial investment ko na 1 million. So it means I gained 250,000 on this investment. But caveat, of course, we also have to take into consideration na hindi guaranteed yung returns. So it's not going up all the time. So investments, yung mga securities na investan could also lose their value. So for mutual funds, so yun, hindi guaranteed yung returns. So we have to take note of that and remember that. So alternatively, kunwari, bumaba yung share net asset value per share niya by 1.8. So that means may loss ako ng 0.2 per share. So gains realized by investors upon redemption are tax-free. So versus, let's say sa bangko, di ba, maliit lang yung percentage na binibigay niya per year, and then it's also subject to withholding tax. So that's why this is also one of the things na I present to my clients na yon, tax-free yung gains na ma-realize mo for your investments. So what are the advantages of investing in mutual funds? So the first is the affordability. So you would be surprised, minsan it seems intimidating parang wow, mutual funds. Pero Sun Life has lowered down the minimum investment. So we have one fund na ang minimum niya lang is 100 pesos. And then the rest, puro 1,000 pesos lang yung minimum. So we don't have an excuse not to invest. Kasi some people say wala silang pera, but yun, it has been made affordable para marami nang makapag-start na mag-invest. Next advantage is the added investing power and strength. So, di ba, unlike in bank deposits, there's a bigger possibility to have an upside in mutual funds. But yun nga, I have to remind that it can go down as well. But at least you have a chance of reaching your goals faster, or you can possibly beat inflation. And then next is liquidity. So what is the let's go to instant diversity first. So how do you become instantly diverse in your investments when you invest in mutual funds? So for example, if I buy shares in the index fund, I already have exposure to 30 different stocks in the Philippine Stock Exchange. Rather than, for example, if I invest it on my own in the stock market, I have to observe board lots. So per share, roughly 2,000 to 5,000 pesos yung minimum, then multiply that by 30 stocks. So that's why yun yung advantage ng investing in mutual funds. Pwede ka kaagad maging invested or to have exposure in a lot of securities already with such a little amount. Aside from that, for example, if you want to diversify geographically, Sun Life has dollar mutual funds that is invested in markets aside from the Philippines. So some of my clients they think they are heavily invested masyado in the Philippines and they want to have exposure abroad. So they consider some of the other funds of Sun Life na denominated in dollars. So next, for liquidity, you can sell or redeem your shares right away. So palalampasin lang yung holding period. So for the money market fund, the holding period is 7 days. For the rest of the funds, the holding period is 30 days. And then if you want to redeem your shares, it only takes a few days of turnaround time for it to be deposited back to your savings account. So, yun, some of my clients, they use this para to take advantage of gaining rather than let it sit in the bank. And then, they like the idea na it's also liquid, like parang sa bangko. You can easily liquidate your shares and turn it into cash when the need arises. Next is mutual funds can have attractive long-term results. So later, I'll show you graphs and tables so ng mga results ng or historical performance of the different funds. So you can consider them and then see if it can help you achieve yung long-term financial goals. And then another advantage is no need for you to study on your own or devote so much time in studying different capital markets. So by riding dun sa expertise ng mga fund managers of Sun Life, you'll be able to what do you call this? Take advantage of that, the expertise nila, rather than relying on yourself, and then you can just concentrate on your strengths or concentrate ka na lang with working or taking care of the family rather than doing extra effort in studying the markets. But of course, I make it a point that my clients understand the funds that they are getting. Kasi I don't want them na investing blindly on these products. Then when you combine all of those advantages, won't that give you peace of mind na you'll be able to achieve your goals easier? And also, last one is investor protection. So mutual funds are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and it is only sold by certified investor solicitors and MF companies. So at least parang ang dami nating naririnig sa news na nasa scam sila because of yung mga get rich quick type of investments. So this is very different from that. And then very transparent yung use of funds. So reports are updated. And then you can actually access your fund value using the Sun Life app if you want to check it daily. So yun, that's why parang the investors are very much protected when investing in mutual funds rather than yung mga kung ano-anong lumalabas sa mga funds. So these are the different types of prosperity funds. So let's start out with the peso funds first. So yun, this table shows you the different types of funds. There are different general investment objectives and yung fund portfolio or yung laman ng fund or where the fund is invested mostly. So the money market fund, so it is usually invested in cash and cash equivalents and other short-term securities. So this is a conservative type of fund. So later I'll give you more details about that. The GS fund is the government securities fund. So it is basically invested in bonds that is issued by the Philippine government. So like mga T-bills, T-notes, and treasury bonds. The next is the bond fund. So it's usually invested in bonds issued by the government and prime Philippine companies. So also yung treasury bills, treasury notes, treasury bonds, and yung mga bonds issued by corporations here in the Philippines. So we move muna to equity fund before I explain yung bond balanced fund. So as the name suggests, equity fund is mainly invested in Philippine equities like mga common stocks or preferred stock that are traded in the Philippine Stock Exchange. So these are equity shares that are listed lang. Hindi sila nag-i-invest sa mga shares ng companies na hindi listed. Why? Because liquidity is important. So if the fund decides to sell, at least there will be ready buyers in the market. Index fund is also a type of equity fund because it's also invested in stocks in the Philippine Stock Exchange. However, this one just follows our Philippine Stock Exchange index. So it's just going to mirror our index. Parang there is less human factor when it comes versus the equity fund. The equity fund, the fund managers can decide where to invest, and then yung index fund naman is passively managed because it just follows the index. Then we go back to balanced fund. So balanced fund naman is a mix of bonds and equity shares. So it invests in both fixed income securities and sa equities then. So bakit may ganito? So for some people that want exposure in the capital markets, in the equity markets, but are afraid to go all in. So that's why parang it's cushioned with fixed income securities para hindi sobrang volatile ng investment. So to classify them, money market, government securities fund, and bond fund, they are the conservative types of funds. The balanced fund is yun, balanced because it has a mix of fixed income securities and high quality stocks. And then yung more on equities na lang are the equity and the index fund. The next table naman shows the different types of dollar funds available from Sun Life. So it's the same na merong conservative types of funds and then meron ding aggressive types of funds. And then they're invested here na dollar denominated or it is invested abroad. So for those that who have USD here in the Philippines and they want to take it out from their USD bank deposits, so my clients consider these types of funds. So to give you naman an idea where the funds are invested, so I will show you yung composition of 4 funds, mainly the money market fund, the bond fund, balanced fund, and equity fund. So you will see the difference in their composition. So money market fund. So as you can see, it is mostly made up of government bonds, which is conservative, mainly cash, money market placements, short-term placements, and also corporate bonds. So my clients who invest in the money market fund, parang it sounds so foreign but actually this one is a very versatile type of fund na ginagamit ng mga clients ko. So for those na gusto nila, or actually I suggest na enough lang for expenses yung mga nasa bank deposits nila. And then if gusto pa rin nila conservative yung type ng security na mapupuntahan, and they want it to be liquid na madaling ma-redeem or hindi volatile din kasi yung value, so we put it here. So what types of goals ba usually fall under the money market fund? So some of my clients, they put their emergency fund here in the money market fund. Like to give you a brief, to give you a more concrete example. So yun, I have a client na nilagay niya yung emergency fund niya here. And then when the lockdown was announced, so kasi ma-affect kasi yung source of income niya. He won't be able to do his work. So wala siyang income. So it's time for him to redeem the shares. So last year niya lang to pinasok, and then he needed it agad. So we processed the redemption of the fund for him to be able to use it for his expenses habang ngayong lockdown na nakatabi na siya just in case mag-low yung cash balance niya. Aside from that, some of my clients use this for their business. So for example, if they have extra cash floating around na they will need within the year and or any time, the business will need it for whatever reason. So they put it here because so far historically for the past few years, this fund has given better returns than bank deposits. And then, so yun, yung ma-earn niya is tax-free. Then what else pa ba nagamit to ng mga clients ko? So yun, basically yun, if they're holding money for quite some time na on behalf of other people, so they put it here muna, and then when they need it na, they redeem it. And then this is also good for very short-term goals. Like I have a client na retiree na siya, so she has excess funds sa bank. So what a good problem to have, di ba, when you're retiring na. So aside from yung mga near-term expenses niya for the year, yun, nilabas na niya yung mga pera dun sa bangko. So iniwan niya lang yung for 1 year niya na expenses sa bank. And then aside from that, we put in here and sa bond fund yung for the remaining years niya na hindi na nag-work. So mga 2 to 3 years, nilagay for 2 to 3 years yan expenses, nilagay niya dito sa money market fund. And then mga 3 years and above, nilagay namin sa bond fund. So to show you the composition naman of the bond fund, so if you compare it with the money market fund, so mas malaki na yung exposure niya sa bonds. So more, so parang, well, what are bonds anyway? So bonds are issued by the government or corporations para makautang sila ng pera, and then after a certain period, they will give it back to the bondholder. Aside from the principal, there's interest. So bondholders earn money by lending to the corporations or the government, tapos may interest yun. So these are the holdings of the bond fund. So ito usually, I recommend this to clients na let's say more or less mid-range yung financial goals nila, and na they can't afford to have any volatility masyado in their investments, but they still need to be able to earn from it. So this is less volatile than equity investments. So next naman is the balanced fund. So balanced fund, to rehash, these have exposure not only in bonds, in cash, but also in equities. So makikita nyo, for example, dito, medyo mabigat na yung exposure niya sa equity. So this is good for clients na, yun nga, who want to take advantage of the volatility brought by equities, but at the same time, they don't want to go head on with that kind of exposure. So ano bang ginagamitan netong fund na to. So I have some clients na who put this para long-term na fund nila, something that they won't expect to redeem in the next 5 years or more, or more than 10 years pa nga. So may mga clients ako na who have this for their pang tuition ng mga babies pa lang nila. So when they turn 17 or 18, when they attend college, they will get the funds from ininvest nila dito. So, and then we move on to equity fund. So aside from yung tuition needs, and also retirement needs, so yun ang usual na mga goals or may pag nag-iipunan lang sila indefinitely. So yun, they consider equity fund, index fund, balanced fund. So if we look at the details naman of the equity fund, so makita nyo ang laki talaga ng exposure sa equities. So with here, you take advantage when the markets are doing well talaga. So ramdam na ramdam mo pag umaakyat yung market. And at the same time, pag bumabagsak yung market, ramdam na ramdam din ni investor yung pagbaba. So how do we deal with that? So what I usually do is parang we make an assessment, ano ba yung goals ni client, anong time frame niya, and what kind of investor ba siya, aggressive or conservative. Para we will see if fit ba sa kanya talaga tong equity fund. Kasi yun nga, it's very volatile. Like recently, yun nga, ang laki ng binaba ng market itong February and March. So I have some clients na medyo kinakabahan sila dahil malaking bumagsak. But yun nga, I remind them about their objectives and time frame. And then other strategies kung paano natin ma-take advantage yung pagbaba ng market. So these are the table for historical returns of the different types of funds. So aside from what I mentioned before, meron din si Sun Life na achiever funds with different time frames. So to explain, ano ba yung mga time frames na yan? Itong funds na to, if malayo pa sa time frame, more on sa equities sila naka-invest. And then, pag palapit na ng palapit dun sa mga respective maturities niya, Sun Life invests it more on conservative types of funds para hindi na volatile yung value. So kumbaga kung malayo pa yung pinaka-deadline niya or maturity, parang it will take advantage of being invested in equities para to have more power or strength when it earns. And then pag malapit na yung deadline, ayaw mo na kasing volatile yung value kasi the assumption is you will redeem the funds anytime soon. So ito yung year-to-date and year-on-year figures niya. So as of January 31. So for the historical returns, here's another presentation. So this one, binibigay yung annual return niya for the past 10 years. So let's compare the first three on top para ma-feel nyo yung conservative versus balanced versus yung full na equities. So mapapansin nyo, yung money market fund and bond fund, yung returns nila is hindi ganun kataas as compared to equity and balance. But on years naman na bumababa, so mabigat talaga yung bagsak ni equity and balance compared to money market fund when the markets are going bad. Then yung some funds naman don't have much historical information kasi late pa sila nag-start. Like yung index fund, it was they only started offering this noong 2016. So to give you more details about the historical returns, so this gives parang a scenario, parang how much is my 1 million over the short term. So kunwari, meron akong 1 million, ininvest ko siya noong January 2018 sa ganitong types of funds, magkano na siya ngayon? So yung 1 million ko, kung sa bond fund ako naglagay 2 years ago, 1.1 na siya. So kumita siya ng 10%, kumbaga. Or kunwari naman, nilagay ko yung 1 million ko sa equity, bumagsak yung market from 2018. 2018, I think, was the peak. So, bumaba yung value niya. But this one is as of January 31, 2020. Based on March 31 values, actually, it's significantly lower than this, probably 30 to 40%. If, for example naman, yung 1 million ko, nilagay ko sa money market fund 2 years ago, nasa 1,065,000 siya. And it was also summarized kung what if 3 years ago, yung 1 million ko, ininvest ko in this different types of funds. So that's the parang short-term illustration ng one-time big-time na investment. And then it's also shown na what if naman I'm long-term with my 1 million. So ito, illustrate siya, parang ano mangyayari sa 1 million ko kung ininvest ko siya nung 5 years ago, nung 7 years ago, or nung 10 years ago. So, di ba, at least lumaki sila over time. Like, for example, ito na lang, yung pinaka-long term, let's look at it. So, my 1 million, if I put it in the bond fund, it became 1.49M. If I put it in the balance fund, it became 1.87 million. So, if sa equities naman ako nag-hedge, naging 2.16M siya. Or if sa money market fund, if I was conservative, very conservative, even for 10 years, nagiging 1.13 million siya. So this is how funds, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na advantage of funds na over the long term with their added investment power and strength. So to compare yung risk-return trade-off of different types of funds versus if you got a treasury bill na 91 days, so that's a very conservative investment. So kinompare na what if yung 1 million mo, pinasok mo nung May 2010 versus how it did hanggang March 2015. So over time, equity had the best performance, followed by the balance fund. Next is yung bond fund, being very conservative. And then, of course, yung pinaka-conservative, which is the treasury bills, na sample lang, na outside sunlight, is konting-konti lang yung in-earn niya in the span of almost 15 years. So this is the importance na why you need to take action on your extra funds in your bank. Kasi what if yun nasa bank mo lang, mababa lang yung kikitain niya, and then matatalo ka pa sa inflation. At least, if you earn using different types of funds, pinasok mo siya sa equity fund or balance fund or bond fund, kumita siya na beat the inflation, you'll be able to reach your goals faster then. So that's how I teach my clients how to use the funds for their goals. So we move to the sales load discussion. So what are sales loads? So they are charges when you invest in the funds. So all funds have sales load except yung money market fund. So money market fund is free of charge ng sales load, and then very short term lang yung holding period niya. So for those naman na other funds na gusto mong kunin from bond fund to the rest, there's going to be a sales load na charge. So you have options on how the charges will be charged to you. So one is the front end option. So you may opt to have the sales load charged up front. So in other words, so kunwari nag-invest ako ng 1 million, pinili ko yung front end. So the sales load will be deducted na from the 1 million before buying the shares. So for different levels of investments, there are appropriate na sales load that matches it. So for less than 100,000, mas mataas yung sales load compared to if ang ipapasok mo na amount is 100,000 to less than 1M. And then, naturally, pag tumaas pa ng 1M yung investment mo, mas maliit na yung sales load na ma-charge sa'yo. And then for dollar investment, so yun, may corresponding leveling din siya. And then clients naman sometimes opt to have the charges taken out only when they redeem their shares. So yung 1 million, for example, I chose yung back-end na sales load. So the whole amount will be invested to buy shares. And then, if mag-redeem ako ng value ng shares, that's when matatanggal yung sales load. So these are the appropriate exit fees depending on which year kayo magre-redeem. So, but after the 5th year, wala nang sales load. So how do I help my clients decide which sales load would be appropriate for their investment? So for example, if their use of the fund is more than 5 years, so mas magandang back-end yung piliin. Why? Kasi para yung buong investment nila is mapapambili ng shares, and then by the time they redeem it after 5 years, wala nang sales load na applicable. So for those naman na they think that they will need the fund anytime soon, within the first 5 years, nagla-lock in sila dun sa front end kasi the rates are lower than compared to if mag-redeem ka early in the first, second, third, or fourth year. So yun, we define talaga the goals of the client para we'll know which fund yung appropriate for that investment and also which sales load. So, yan, for those that who want to proceed with starting or maintaining or their mutual fund, so even if we're on lockdown, you can start your mutual funds online. So may instructions yan. You'll do it over the portal, upload a copy of your ID, the deposit slip, or the bank transfer using yung online platform of your bank. Then yun, you accomplish the necessary details. So that's how easy it is to start a mutual fund with Sun Life. And then when you started your account na, you can download the Sun Life PH mobile app in your phone, register your account, so you can view your investments using the app. And then also using the app, aside from viewing the value of your investments, you can add, you can switch, and redeem your funds using the app. So my clients, hindi lang naman kami nag-meeting at the start when they get their funds. So we also reevaluate their goals, reevaluate yung value ng investments if they are still in line with it, and then what are certain actions to be taken if something happens in the market. Sometimes kasi we need to decide to switch to different funds. So yun naman, they contact me so para I can give advice to them on what to do for their funds. So after this, we can discuss your financial goals. So you may just message me on Facebook Messenger or Viber or WhatsApp para we can discuss your investment objectives, time frame, and risk tolerance. So para lang yung pumupunta ka sa doktor. So you need to give the right symptoms so I can give the right type of financial advice para for your goals. Then aside from that kasi na parang yung goals mo lang yung chine-check, I also try to assess the overall portfolio of the client. So sometimes nakikita ko na they have too much exposure, let's say kunwari in equities, that any movement in the equities will have a very huge impact in their portfolio. So that's also considered when we do our meetings. So yun, with that, with the information that they give me, I determine which fund is appropriate for the strategy, and then I guide them with the next steps for the online application. So I will check the chat box to see if you guys have any questions that needs to be addressed. So type in your questions now. Any questions na you would like to address now, or baka naman you're too shy to ask them? You can PM that to me after. So, yan, Carol says she wants to slide into my DMs. Rachel then. Anyone else? I'd like to see now who's in here. Any questions, guys, from about what we just discussed? And also, do you have any questions about the current market situation? Gino, single ka pa daw ba? So Ruby says she will message you then. Then Raywing says, what's your advice, ma'am, if someone wants to invest in the stock market right now? So, yeah, to address that, so I guess baka naririnig niyo na stock markets haven't been doing so well within the past months. Why is there parang a sell down? Why is it happening? So the sell down is brought about the uncertainty because of the coronavirus situation and the lockdowns that are implemented to be able to address that. So initially we have a public health problem, and then with the measures taken, it will take a hit on us economically because we're on lockdown, hindi tayo makagalaw. So may mga hindi makapasok sa atin, businesses are closed, and naturally, so walang kikitain yung mga walang operations. So that's why earnings are not foreseen to hit targets for this year. Hence, walang confidence yung investing public in the capital markets right now. So that's why there is, and aside from that, people invested here and abroad, mostly abroad, are cashing in their gains from before and also securing cash because there's a lot of uncertainty worldwide. So what's the question again? So if you want to invest in equities or have exposure in the stock market right now, so what the advice I have given to my current clients and those now who would like to get in the market for now is, it is true that stocks are very cheap from now because it has fallen around 30 to 40% from the top. So yon, the price, the values are still there, but the price has gone down. So it looks very cheap. However, the question is, tataas ba yan agad-agad? So what would be an indication? Parang for me to be prudent, let's wait first for signs of containment and cure for the virus. And then it also depends if the companies that are listed will be able to restart again once the lockdowns are lifted. And that depends on how long the lockdowns are. So for example, it takes a hit talaga for the companies if the lockdown gets longer. There could possibly be layoffs of people. So when businesses restart, parang it's going to be harder to gain traction again. So we'll have to see, when this is all over, if businesses will be able to bounce back immediately. Then hopefully the markets will be able to take that into value and then recover. So what we can do now is, if you want to have exposure in the stock market eventually, so what you can do is ipon muna sa money market fund, and then when we see the light at the end of the tunnel, you can fund switch to equity. So fund switching naman is free 10 times for the year. Some clients naman would like to take advantage of the dips that's happening in the market. So, yun. Kasi it's really hard to time the market with its dips. So, with that, parang they invest in tranches naman. So, kunwari, naglalagay sila in the market weekly or monthly. para to have exposure na. Kasi nga, parang they're trying to time by the low of the market, but at least averaging. So yon, that's my advice for those now who want to have exposure in the equities market. So I hope that answers Rayween's query. So next is from Pia. What's the benefit of mutual fund versus direct investments via Call Financial or any bank product? So what is Call Financial? So for those that are not familiar with Call Financial, so that's an online broker. So let me drink water first. So if you have an account, for example, ako rin, I have an account with another online broker. Ang advantage of investing in mutual funds is you'll be able to ride on the expertise of the fund managers na who has extensive study or work experience handling funds versus if you just open your own online broker account, because you call all the shots. So sometimes you have to study actually optimally you study fundamental analysis, technical analysis, para for you to be able to gain in your investment. So investing is not easy for in stock market. So ang daming napapaso dyan, even if meron silang knowledge na. And studying the stock market takes so much time. So some people, they just want to, kumbaga, delegate it to the fund managers, invest in the mutual funds, and just pay the sales loan. Minimal lang naman siya. Or any, so comparing to any other bank product. So for example, I have a client naman na meron din siyang investments in private banking. So private banking, para pansinin ka niyan, kailangan mataas yung initial amount of investment mo. But at least with mutual funds, papansinin ka naming mga financial advisors kahit 1,000 lang yung minimum niya. So it's easy to access for people na who don't have big capital for investing. So Gino is asking, how will this lockdown affect variable investments made last year? So yon, if you have exposure from last year na bumili ka ng stocks, most likely the value has gone down. So what you can do is you can average down yon, depending if you want to just wait and see until we see the light at the end of the tunnel, or you make tranches now habang mababa yung market. So if you can see in the table, the market has sharply fallen down. So stocks are very cheap. Listed companies are actually starting to buy back their own shares because they believe that they can earn from buying it back na at this point. So Nathaniel Guzon asked if I consistently add funds using backend, does the 5-year rule apply to each subscription? Or does it only apply to the first subscription? So it applies to each subscription. So if I'm not mistaken, parang naka FIFO siya, first in, first out. So for those investments na tranches of investment na padulo na, you have to be careful na baka dapat front end na siya rather than back end. Kasi what if your time frame is 7 years, on the 5th year na magpapasok ka ng pera, mabigat na yan masyado if back-end. So it's better if for the 5th year of yearly investment mo, you make it front-end. Gino asks, is it the best time to buy now? So yeah, I think I addressed it earlier now. JM, what is the difference between mutual funds and unit investment trust funds? So baka narinig na rin yung UITFs. So they're essentially the same, except UITFs are issued by banks. So ano naman yung advantage? Siyempre, ibibida ko si MF versus UITF. Kasi what if same lang sila? What if piliin ko ng UITF? So with UITF, usually you can get that through access ng online banking, or pupunta ka sa bank mismo, you talk to a teller, set up your fund. So advantage na lang versus mutual fund is, for example, you have me advising you on your funds. So parang there's less personal touch with UITFs versus mutual funds. Kasi yun nga, if you get mutual funds, you'll be guided by your financial advisor. Island. So how fast do the funds go back to normal after the lockdown? So, ayon, we have historical data here. So can you see the graph ba? Can someone confirm? No. So wait, new share. Okay, I'll switch this. Okay, so can you see the table? Sorry, graph. Yeah. So this one shows na ano ba yung I'll explain pala the parts of the graph first. So this gray line is your index level. So the numbers of the index are here on the left. So mapapansin nyo, parang may mga certain na what do you call this, encircle. So ano ba yung mga nangyari dyan? So for example, this circle on year 2020, so that's what's happening right now. That's the sharp fall na yung may COVID ganap. During 2030 naman, that sharp fall came because of, ano nga ba nangyari dyan? Parang I think US interest rates were going up kaya na-rattle yung market. During 2008 naman, the markets went down because of the subprime lending crisis ng US. So nagkadamay-damay lahat ng world markets. Then, ito naman, 1997, 1998 was the Asian financial crisis. So as you can see, well, it has different effects for different type of crisis. So sometimes it just takes a few months for the markets to recover, like nung nagkaroon ng SARS. Para I think it recovered in less than 6 months. And then nung Asian financial crisis, it took a bit longer because the companies didn't have what we call this, parang a kick for them to restart immediately. Kaya yung share prices weren't as attractive. Parang people weren't keen on investing that time back in securities. So, so paano yung mangyayari ng itong situation natin ngayon? So, it depends on how this lockdown will affect the listed companies if they will be able to restart immediately after this. So, for example, matapos yung lockdown, tingnan mo na lang din yung consumption attitude mo. Babalik ka ba agad sa labas to shop around, kumain sa Jollibee? So, those market behaviors after COVID might still affect listed companies, so which will possibly affect the share prices na mahirapan to go up. But let's see how long this lockdown will be, and then let's see if companies will have a hard time or an easy time restarting after this lockdown. So, I hope I was able to address that. Emil Rose, does fund managers reveal or report where the money was invested? Say he put it in MEG or FNI. So to start with that, the funds are mandated on which types of stocks for equity funds now, which kind of stocks it will be invested. So it's mandated to only invest in blue chip stocks. It cannot invest in basura stocks or less liquid stocks, or else it will violate the mandate of the fund. And then monthly, it gives summaries on where the fund was invested. Kasi, for example, sa equity fund, they switch it to whatever stock na they think will have a good upside. So it's reviewed once in a while. So they sell those na they think na who will be laggards, and then they buy those na they think na who will have a good upside. So, hi, Ms. Mabel. Hope you're well. And then, how do you assess a mutual fund's risk? Thank you. So, I assess a mutual fund's risk depending on what kind of securities na it is mandated to invest in. Ano ba yung time frame ng funds na yon, and where it is invested. So, of course, may geographic, where there are different types of risks. So may geographical risk, regulatory risk, liquidity risk, credit risk. So those are the things that are assessed. So for example, if a fund, an equity fund is invested in maraming shares in Manila Water, and then Manila Water was in hot water just a few months ago because of regulatory risks. So those things are assessed, depending on where the fund can be possibly invested or where is it actually invested. So yeah, any other questions? So we've been running for an hour na pala. So yan, if we don't have questions anymore, let's move to our question and answer. So mechanics, I will post a question and then first person to type the answer, what are the yellow bars on the PSA index? So that was the price earnings ratio. So parang the price the price is compared against the earnings per share of the stock. So I think those are the yellow bars on the graph kanina. So moving to the question and answer. So mechanics is I will post a question dun sa presentation. So the first one who gives the correct answer via group chat will win a starter money market fund. So are you guys ready? So, syempre, hindi ko kayo maririnig because naka-mute kayo. So, yun na. Flex your typing fingers. So, unahan to ha, guys. First question. How much is the assets under management of Sun Life Asset Management as of January 2020? So, did you guys take note of that? Okay, first is si Sir Nate. Nice one. He remembered it. Sorry, JM, may nauna. Ay, 85. I-accept ko ba yung decimals? Wait, let me check the exact figure. It's 85.29, so it was JM who got it correctly, not Sir Nate. Sorry, Mars Janelle. And then, so congratulations, JM. So give chance to others naman para may ibang manalo ng mutual fund. Next question is, give 3 types of Sun Life Prosperity funds. Yes, Pia, I will add it to your account if you win. So it's Alvan who got it correctly first. So 3 types of funds that he indicated: equity, money market, and balance. So congratulations, Alvan. Then next question. Are you guys ready? So what is the general increase in prices and fall in the purchasing value of money? So first person to answer is Nate. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar. So I hope to hear from you guys soon. Stay indoors tayong lahat. Let's all help flatten the curve para makalabas na tayong lahat. Matulungan natin sila Jollibee, sila Ayala Land, sila SM kumita ulit pag nakalabas na tayo para tumaas yung value ng funds, kumita rin tayo. So thank you guys so much. So hope to hear from you soon. Good night and sweet dreams.